Hey, guy, how you doing?
I got the dogs barking. I mean, it's chaos. It's chaos here.
Get the Alpo out and pour it in. Are we going with like a dry dog food, or are we going with something like moist and meaty inside the can?
You're showing your age there. I don't think even people that
Really?
own Alpo buy Alpo
Really?
anymore. There's so many
Wow.
better brands of dog food for your dog. In my case, for my two dogs.
You going organic for your dogs?
No, but I will tell you, no, Tim, we're not. But I will tell you, the dogs do eat better than I eat from time to time. Like, they will eat chicken and eggs, and from time to time pizza. Believe it or not, I know that sounds awful, but they seem to enjoy it.
The good news is that Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper was not in the top 50 of the Rolling Stone 500 top albums of all time, fortunately. So there's some sense that someone's doing the right thing over there. Sorry, Cyndi. But the list was, and you know what? I'm just gonna, right. So a lot of predictability. First of all, so how many Zeppelin, Who, and Beatles albums do you think made the top 50?
Zeppelin, Who, Beatles album in the top 50. There should be 53 of them, in my opinion.
Right.
But clearly, the way you say that, I mean, the answer is probably nowhere near that.
I'm not happy with this list, my man. I am not happy. But Beatles. All right. So Beatles, there were actually 5 in the top 35.
Okay.
Which is kind of like an AP or a coaches poll of the SEC getting 7 out of the top 17 teams in the top 20. By the way, but let's not go there. So how many Zeps in the top 50 do you think made it?
Look, I will tell you, legit, there should be 7 Zeppelin albums in the top. I mean, that's legit 7 Zeppelin albums. If it's less than 5, that's a miscarriage of justice. How's that?
I would have 3 to 4. But guess how? So zip, poof, nothing.
I mean,
Butkus.
That's preposterous. That's preposterous.
It makes no sense. All right. So at least they made it up with The Who, right?
The Who should have 3 legit albums in the top 50.
Who's
3?
Next? Quadrophenia, probably Tommy, because it was such an important rock opera. Anyway, 0 for The Who as well. So how do you explain this? And I got to be really careful about the people that dotted the top 10. But the fact that you had no Pearl Jam, no Zeppelin, no Who, no Allman Brothers, certainly no Skynyrd Brothers.
There goes without saying then there's no Skynyrd. And Street Survivors should be a top 10 album. Forget about top 50.
Would you? I mean,
and what about Boston's first album?
We're in agreement on that. I mean, I'd probably drop that in somewhere around 26. But again, that's me. I'm trying to understand both the commercially, the relevance, the innovation, all the things. But if you like the top 3, Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," I get it. That's not, first of all, I wish we'd had a Motown classification. Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I love the Beach Boys. That was a very, very leading edge album. Sgt. Pepper was based on it. The sound of his dog. Speaking of your dogs barking in the background, man, I think that was part of Pet Sounds. And Joni Mitchell weighing in the top 5. I think even your girl Carole King made the top 25. So, do polls like this, are they more reflective of the times?
You think about what Rolling Stone's trying to do here, and the fact that we're talking about it means that they've actually succeeded. It worked because it's created a buzz around maybe a company or a platform that doesn't nearly have the cachet that it had when these top 500 things were relevant. So,
by the way, Zeppelin 4 got in at 58. By the way, that's the first showing on the list. I don't want to rile you up right now,
well,
bro.
you've riled me up, but
so
how does this all equate back to what we do? And it's interesting because you're talking about bands that were clearly relevant for a long time.
Yep.
That are no longer relevant in their eyes, and in the market eyes, you have companies that were very relevant that are no longer relevant. And the 3 that come to my mind, and we talked about this, so this was collaborative, but General Electric,
Yep.
IBM, and if you want to take a big cap integrated energy name, ExxonMobil. And
Got to do it.
have they gone by the wayside? Are they never going to come back again? Or one of these three going to rise like a phoenix from the ashes?
We spent a lot of time earlier in the summer talking about Exxon's fall from grace out of the industrial average, which to me was just one of the great kind of moments in time to show just how the world has changed. Remember when oil was really the strategic asset in the world that countries were fighting over, and they were fighting over it as little as, going into the crisis 2008. And the biggest companies in the world were oil companies. They're not anymore, and they're shrinking by the second. And technology and data is the new oil. So I know Exxon's not making it back anytime soon, even if they move very quickly where they already are into some form of EV and renewable and alternative fuels, et cetera. They are there. Look, of the three, IBM's got the closest shot, and IBM is the one that arguably should have been there to see this turn, was positioned in the right industry. Think about their enterprise business. Well, think about the enterprise business as it's transitioned into cloud, away from hardware. I mean, how asleep at the switch were they, though? And to the extent that whether it's the Red Hat acquisition that started to really show some meaningful critical mass in cloud, and actually I think is competing on some level. I think IBM has got the closest shot. I think GE, which, think about GE, that was considered a technology company when Exxon was in its heyday. And while I realize whether it's in aerospace and in some of their turbine business and even in some of their healthcare business, that's hardware technology. That is not where technology is today. So that's my assessment of those three.
I agree with IBM. I mean, IBM was asleep at the switch, and I'll say this, and I'm sure that people will disagree, but I think for in large part because, in my opinion, the central banks, our Federal Reserve, made it so easy to borrow money cheap, buy back stock. I think companies got lazy, and I think the poster child for that was IBM, and they bought back, probably in terms of dollars and cents, more stock than any company in the history of mankind, and it got them nowhere. The Red Hat deal was a Hail Mary that they had to make. They absolutely overpaid, but maybe they had to. And so maybe that was the lifeline that they needed, and maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I still think you need a management shakeup there, and I'm not looking to throw anybody under the bus, and maybe it started already, but out of the three names we just mentioned, the one that can maybe make the turn is IBM. So I agree with you.
As we make the turn, let's go out. I need your top 10. Give me, and some, I don't need the order. And I know you've got 19 Zeppelin albums in your top 10.
No, but I'm not going to do that to you because it's not fair, because I could have 6 Zeppelin albums in the top 10. So Zeppelin's first album to me was just a thing of, starting first song, first side, Good Times, Bad. Zeppelin. Boston's first album absolutely is in there. The Cars' first album, absolutely in there.
Nice.
I will say that Street Survivors is absolutely in there. I will say Live from the Fillmore East, Allman Brothers has to be there without question.
That's one of mine.
I would say Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. I know that's a sleeper. Has to be there. And I'll give you one more. Carole King, Tapestry, has to be there. Go.
I'm not buying that. You can't name me 3 songs on that album, by the way, can you?
So Far Away.
Carole King. All right. So Allman Brothers, Fillmore, you're right there. Not in any particular order, but Quadrophenia by The Who. The Clash, London Calling, which to their credit made number 16. REM's Reckoning was to me a masterpiece. U2, Joshua Tree, it has to be there. And by the way, U2 nowhere to be found in their top 50.
You're
either.
a Petty guy. I'm surprised you haven't rattled a Tom Petty. Damn the Torpedoes.
The issue with Petty is that Damn the Torpedoes had 5 great songs, but it's not coast to coast. Part of what we're doing here is we're going bands that went coast to coast on these albums, everything on it. And I'd like to put Boston in there, but I'm going to do Def Leppard, Hysteria. And I know that probably kills you, but I think Def Leppard is so underrated as a band, both in terms of their style and the players in that band. But that album you couldn't get away from it in the late 80s. And in fact, I didn't want to get away from it. The other band from the late 80s that I think is as classic rock, even though they came well after a lot of these bands, is Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. That is a coast to coast and that is one of the great rock albums of all time.
What do you see behind me?
I don't see anything right now.
Because there's a darkness on the edge of town.
Look at what you did there.
Is a brilliant album, and that is how we're going to go out tonight on a Wednesday.
We're born to run, guys. See you tomorrow.